There we go. Are we ready? Okay, good afternoon. The Memphis Landmarks Commission is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of, March 24th, 2022. My name is Cindy Tucker, and I'm the chairperson of the commission. Mr. Brett Ragsdale serves as the executive secretary of the commission. Mr. Ragsdale, may I get a roll call?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Cox?
Present.
Ms. Love?
Present.
Ms. Strong?
Present.
Mr. Warren?
Present.
Mr. Walker?
Present.
Chair Tucker?
Thank you.
We have a quorum.
Okay. The Memphis Landmarks Commission and the local historic district provisions are established to ensure preservation of structures that are of historic value to Memphis. Our function is to preserve significant resources, enhance community pride, and foster civic beauty and ensure compatibility within designated historic districts. The Commission is authorized to review projects and determine their appropriateness based on the design review guidelines. At this time, I would like to swear in the staff. You may remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. Oh, good. Motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide a secretary's report if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure for the meeting.
I don't have a secretary report, but I do want to note that item number 3 has been withdrawn. So item number 3 that's on the agenda has been withdrawn. So that's the only note to the agenda. Now we'll discuss the procedures for the meeting. The procedure for this meeting will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are found on the right podium. For each case, staff with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, the commission will hear first from those speakers in support of the application, then from those speakers in opposition to the application, and the speakers will have 3 minutes each. And then finally, the applicant will have 3 minutes to provide rebuttal. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the commission. The chairwoman may provide additional time, provided both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the commission will be sworn in by the chairwoman. If a member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any DPD planner at the left podium. We do not need speaker's cards from the applicant since their names are already part of the record. After all parties have been heard, the commission will close the public hearing, make a motion, and then deliberate on the case. All motions made by this commission will be made in the affirmative. The bylaws governing the commission require the affirmative vote of a majority of the attending members to approve an application. The commission may also vote to hold an application for a period of 1 month. Madam Chair, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled.
Okay, thank you. At this point, the commission will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience or the commission objects to a case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should do so by a show of hands when the secretary reads the case. Once the consent agenda is established, the commission will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on each case. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda are eligible for consent?
Yes, Madam Chair. Item number 1, COA 2021-183 is a 1-month hold. Item number 2, COA 2021-202 as approval. Item number 5, COA 2022-012 as approval.
Do you have a 4?
Yes, ma'am, but we have a speaker's card on that,
Okay.
so it's not eligible for consent. Item number 7, COA 2022-014, approval with conditions. Item number 8, COA 2022-015, approval with conditions. And item number 9, COA 2022-017, approval with condition.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as established by the secretary? Anybody?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to remind the commission that by voting on the consent agenda, he or she affirms that he or she has read the staff report and is in full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, can I get a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
And Chair Tucker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, if you're here for any of those cases that were just read onto the consent agenda, you have been approved. You do not have to remain at the meeting, but are welcome to stay for the remainder if you would like. Okay. At this point, I would like to state that the minor COA applications as listed on the agenda have been reviewed and approved by the commission. The commission will now continue with the regular hearing of the major COA applications as listed on the agenda. Mr. Secretary, please call the first case for the regular agenda.
Item number 4, COA 2022-004, 1043 North Idlewild Street in the Valentine Evergreen Historic District.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
You need to go to the podium.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Krishonda Lynn Clark. My address is 1043 North Idlewild Street, Memphis, Tennessee, 38107.
Okay, thank you. Do you, raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Have you had a chance to read the staff report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you agree with the staff report and its conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We have one person that wants to speak in opposition. Do you want to see the report? Staff report? Commission?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm presenting this case in behalf of my colleague, Ms. Margot Payne. Item before you is a COA request for exterior alterations to replace 16 windows with new vinyl windows in Valentine Evergreen Historic District. Subject structure is considered contributing to Valentine Hills National Register District, and original windows are listed as 6/6 double hung and one single light fixed picture window flanked by multi-light casement side lights at the front facade. This site plan is a key to the following pictures. Side A is the front facade. Sides B and D are side elevations, and side C is the rear facade of the home. These pictures shows the front and right side of the structure with the original windows. As you can see, there's a picture window at the front facade, and all the other windows are 6/6 double hung. These are the rear and left side elevations as existing. The replacement window material is 1/1 vinyl window. This application was held during February meeting to allow the applicant and the neighborhood representatives to meet and consider options and come up with a compromise if possible regarding the grid patterns of the replacement windows. We were informed that Valentine Evergreen representatives met with the applicant after February meeting, and we also discussed the application again during the March 2nd design review meeting earlier this month. After these meetings, the applicant and Valentine Evergreen came to an agreement of a compromise, and our current staff recommendations are reflecting this compromise. So staff recommends approval of this application with 5 conditions as stated in the staff report, page 7. This concludes our presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, do the commissioners have any questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Okay, the applicant, did you want to present have anything to say, present a case?
Well, I was willing to go with the recommendations that were given on the last email that I received, which said that the 4 windows that are facing the street had to remain the same, and that the other windows, we could do the 1-over-1 double hung.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Okay, thank you. We do have someone to speak in opposition. Ms. Askew? Okay, you raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And could you state your name and address?
Susie Askew, 1875 Jackson Avenue in Becca.
Okay.
We're not in opposition. We agree with the compromise, but we wanted to bring the commission up to date on this street in particular, if you haven't had a chance to drive by it. There are approximately 30 houses on this street. They're all very similar. They were all built by the same builder in the same style, but they each have slight differences to them. In doing a window count currently, there are 10 houses on this street out of 30 that have 1-over-1s. There are 9 houses on this street that currently have 6-over-6s. There are 6 houses that have 2-over-2s, and then you get your various casements and mixed windows, and the ones that have picture windows are all really nicely done. Our concern is that through compromise, we will eventually have a whole street full of 1-over-1s, and we think that the original window configuration done by the architects on the street gives it that difference that makes each house a little distinct from the other. And so we thank Ms. Clark for agreeing to the compromise on the front windows, but we also are aware that we can't keep compromising, or we will have 30 houses all with 1-over-1 windows and no distinction. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions of Ms. Askew? Okay, thank you. Okay. I think that, did you have any other? Okay, all right, thank you. I'll now close the public hearing portion. Did the commissioners want to discuss it or make a motion?
Yes, this is Commissioner Warren. I move to approve case 2022-004, subject to 5 staff conditions.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Chair Tucker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And our next item is item number 6, COA 2022-013, 603 Rembert Street in the Central Gardens Historic District.
Is the applicant present? May you come forward, please? Okay, could you state your name and address?
Brian O'Leary, 603 South Rembert Street.
South.
South Rembert Street.
Okay, thank you. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Have you seen the report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and are you in agreement with the report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do we want to see the staff?
Yes, please.
Because I think you weren't here.
Well, Yeah, I think it might be good. I apologize for that. Last month I wasn't here, but it might frame the discussion, refresh everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm presenting this case again in behalf of my colleague, Ms. Margot Payne. Item before you is a COA request for exterior alterations to paint originally unpainted exterior brick in Central Gardens Historic District. This is a retroactive case. Okay, my computer is frozen, so there we go. Okay. Subject property is a two-story craftsman-style apartment building contributing to Central Gardens National Register District. These Google Street views show the previous condition of the apartment from January of this year. These pictures show the more recent conditions of the apartment building before tuck pointing work was done, but as you can see, the painting work was already begun. And these pictures show the details of the brick exterior after tuck pointing. Central Gardens design guidelines do not support painting of unpainted brick exteriors and state that if painted, the preference is to maintain the same color as the original brick. Proposed work does not adhere to Central Gardens design guidelines. However, much of the work has been already completed and the painting of brick cannot be undone without causing further harm to the historic masonry. Thusly, the staff recommends approval of this application with 3 conditions. 1, the applicant must pay the double fee, which is already fulfilled at the application process. 2, masonry in need of repair shall be replaced and or repointed with bricks and mortar that match the original in terms of size, texture, joint width, tooling, and bonding pattern before the paint work is complete. And 3, any change or deviation from approved COA shall be submitted for further review to the Landmarks Commission. This concludes our presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners have any questions for staff?
Do you know what kind of paint the brick was painted with? I suppose that might be more, okay. We can pause.
What was your question?
My question involved what type of paint
Is already up there?
was used for the brick. Was
Okay,
it
that might be his
acrylic,
question.
latex?
That would be a question for the
For
applicant.
him?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you. Okay. Do you want to have a rebuttal or talk about?
I would just like to say that all we're trying to do is improve the property. And unfortunately, we weren't aware of the COA process when we started. Otherwise, we would have done this beforehand. I did, after our meeting, meet with Shelley Rainwater of Central Gardens, and we discussed what she would like to have happen. That's why we did the tuck pointing, and we agreed on the color of the paint.
Okay, the commissioners have questions for the applicant.
What color of paint did you all agree on?
It's a Balboa mist. It's actually the color in the pictures as well. It's like a really light gray, whitish color.
Questions?
I do have questions. So I think what I see in the photos is appears to be monochromatic, which I guess would be the first step in painting a building. Can you speak to your intent on paint with respect to all the architectural detail on this building? For example, there are stone wall caps, coping at the roof, window sills, window frames, porch ceilings, which are very visible from the street below, porch railings, decorative urns, planters, the urns on the porch.
We were actually just going to keep most of everything the same color, except for the ceilings on the balconies. You can see we would keep white, ceiling white.
So you're going to paint the entire building the same color?
At the moment, yes.
It's all going to be white?
It's like a light gray, white.
So I have a question as well. As it was mentioned in the staff report that was presented and as it states in the design guidelines for Central Gardens, it is preferred that the original brick of the historic home be maintained and not painted. However, if painted, the preference is to maintain the same color as the original brick. And you stated that you're going to go with this. Would you be open to, since there are two other structures that are unpainted, to painting something that is closer to the original color of the brick so that the other two structures don't have to be painted?
So
Or
is that-
something that closely, I'm not through. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Or a color that closely matches the original brick. Because the way it is right now, you have this light gray and you have the unpainted brick. And since it's already painted and it can't be unpainted or it's harmful to take the paint off, it wouldn't stand out so much if you maybe went with a color that was closer to the original color of the brick instead of the light gray that you are.
Brick color.
So it's actually all one structure.
I know it's all one structure.
I'm sorry?
I know it's all one structure.
Okay. I don't think I'm open to changing the color that we've already started to paint it, especially since I've already agreed with the Central Gardens president on the color.
But in our design guidelines, it states color similar to the original brick color or one that closely matches it. That's what the design guidelines state.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And you paint it without going through the process of a certificate of appropriateness to begin with.
Okay. I'm actually confused. Is a preference a rule or is it a preference? Are we enforcing the preference or the rule?
Well, yes, the commission has the authority to enforce a preference if it's in the design guidelines for a historic district.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
What does it state exactly in their guidelines? Do we have that handy? I know we've read it before, but
It's item N18 of the design guidelines. And C, sub-item, states, it is preferred that the original brick of the historic home be maintained and not painted. However, if painted, the preference is to maintain the same color as the original brick. So the statement is a statement of the
don't change,
preference.
if you're going to paint it, don't change it too drastically. Keep it as close to the brick color or whatever the color is as you
Yes.
can. Okay. And I think that's what you're trying to reinforce with what you're
Yes.
saying.
It would be in compliance with their design guidelines. Since the applicant went and did something that was against the design guidelines, it would be closer to what the neighborhood has allowed as an alternative.
And how long have you owned this building?
I believe we bought it in August of 2021.
Okay. And do you own any other properties in any historic areas?
Not in the historic districts, no, ma'am, but we have 3 others in Midtown.
Okay. You've never done anything in a historic district before?
No, ma'am.
You weren't aware that there were historic guidelines within a historic district?
Unfortunately, I was not.
But in the design review meeting, didn't you say you were from Memphis?
I'm sorry, I have trouble hearing you, actually.
In the design review meeting, didn't you state you were from Memphis?
Yes, ma'am, I am from
And
Memphis.
you were familiar with Central Gardens?
I do know what Central Gardens is.
Right. So you
And-
did say you were a longtime Memphian or are from Memphis and you know about Central Gardens. You did state that in the design review meeting, for the record.
And where do you live?
I live in Germantown.
Okay. What was your address that you stated?
I stated the address in the application. Would you like my home address?
Do you want the home address?
I mean, it's not completely necessary, but that's a preference. So yes, we can go ahead and get that for the record.
6993 Winter Hall Drive, Germantown, Tennessee, 38138.
They have strict guidelines in Germany.
This is a bit off topic, but we often have applicants stating the address of their property, even if it's an investment property or whatever. And I think the intent of the public hearing is to state their principal address of residence. So I think we just,
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, I don't think it's particularly relevant to what's before us, but just as an aside.
Yeah, and I think that's more of an issue if you state a different address from the one that we're.
That's true. So I wasn't here last month, so I'm not sure how far the discussion got, but my understanding of the situation is that the Central Gardens Historic District guidelines have been revised over the last few years. And I'd confirmed that with staff beforehand. I have a printed copy here at my desk that has some pretty strong language in what used to be section N15 that says masonry shall not be painted. In the new version of the Central Gardens guidelines, that has been removed, reworded, and shifted to section N18, is it? Aisha, can you put that, do you mind putting the actual guideline on the screen?
Sure.
And the word preference is now used. And that really makes our job a lot harder, if not impossible, up here. Because what I think Commissioner Strong correctly pointed out is that the Commission's authority to enforce a preference is not subject to debate. We absolutely can enforce a preference. So where I'm going with this for everyone that's not initiated on it is that unfortunately we end up being like lawyers up here, and there are words that say shall and must, and we all know what that means, and then there's a word that says prefer or should, and that doesn't mean the same thing. And so 100% the Commission has the authority to enforce a preference. If you came here 2 months ago, I would vote no, and I still may vote no, and we have the authority to do that. I think what is up for debate, and it's not up for debate out there, it's up for debate internally, is to what degree does work that's already been done affect the individual commissioner's opinion about approval. And that's, I think, as succinct a way as I can describe it, as there is. Because a commissioner can vote, yes, I approve this, and Central Gardens can be very upset about it, but they need to go back and reword their guidelines and be clear again. I don't know why that, I mean, Secretary Ragsdale has some knowledge of the history there, but they removed the phrase that says shall not be painted, except if necessitated by an act of God was in there. Let me find it, because it's kind of interesting.
Well, I guess it leads to the question of, you already stated that you had approval, you've already collaborated with the neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
I have a copy of that if you'd like.
And they have actually agreed with the fact that, yes, you can go ahead with this color.
Yes, ma'am. She actually told me to keep painting, and I didn't out of respect for the commission.
Okay. So the biggest support that we have, like, your biggest hurdle essentially is done color-wise.
Well, I don't agree with that necessarily with all, like, I really respect any neighborhood advocate, a spokesperson, committee head, chairperson for all the work they do, but it's still one citizen's opinion. They don't have, it carries weight and it represents a lot to us up here, but at the same time, it only matters as much as we can be swayed by that perspective. And I often question when a neighborhood representative would come up here, and this is not in particular to Ms. Rainwater, but we've had some representatives up here that say, my neighborhood says this, and I'd love to know, okay, how many people were at your meeting? And it was probably, sometimes I know for a fact it was them and another person having coffee, you know? So that carries some weight, but it's another subject for debate, how much weight that should carry. So the old version of the Central Gardens guideline under N15, stone, stucco, brick, painted wood siding, painted shingles are appropriate materials. But then it says in bold, masonry shall not be painted unless matching bricks is a problem due to fire or act of God. Now the new version says, it is preferred that original brick of the historic home be maintained and not painted. However, if painted, the preference is to maintain the same color of the original brick. And there's other layers here. This is not a house, this is an apartment building. The way the guidelines are written, there's chapter 1, which talks about single family homes, and that's where we're in chapter 1 right now. So you know, doing code research, legal stuff, you have to say, okay, is that chapter even applicable? But if the only other chapter that's possibly applicable is the last chapter, which is religious and institutional buildings, and I read the opening statement there, And it basically says, this chapter is for non-residential. So for Central Gardens, if they go back and listen to the archive, my recommendation is also, where do you put apartment buildings? I think it's residential. I think you have the correct, most relevant passage highlighted in your staff report. But ultimately, I think it's up to each individual commissioner what to do in this case. Let me add one last thing, unrelated to all the legal diatribe. I personally think that it would be a huge mistake and a travesty, frankly, to paint this entire building a single shade of one color. I mean, I've seen a Victorian home on McLean that comes to mind that was painted the same color from the soffit to the shingles to the window trim to the porch ceiling, and it kills all architectural detail and variety on the facade. Now putting my legal hat back on, we don't regulate paint colors. I mean, that's another thing that I struggle with. You could paint it Pepto-Bismol pink. So, but I mean, back to the preference, I would be inclined, if anyone wants to vote to approve it, that we please require a minimum of 2 colors with the trim. If you go back and look at the old photos, you had red brick, and I believe you had painted stone. It was clearly a different color with some contrast. So I think we would hope to request something like that. And I think your property value and rents would be improved by it, frankly. That's all I have.
Did you have any response? Or
Oh, hold on. I have just a little bit, because I agree with Peter completely on that, but the color option, again, is not something that's really underneath our purview. My concern is more so, what was the whole reason of us not painting brick in the first place? And it is because it inhibits certain methods of maintenance for the brick as it exists. So I am more concerned over what kind of paint did you actually paint the brick with? Because if you're doing one that actually does not allow the brick to breathe, then you've created a whole issue. Versus if you chose one that actually is more of a mineral silicate kind of version, which allows your paint, your brick to breathe, then you're contributing to the long lastingness of this particular building. So for me, it is, did you just slap on some random exterior paint, or did you actually put some care and thought into that?
Yes, ma'am. We have an account with Farrell Calhoun, and we use the paint that they recommended for the exterior of a brick building. And I have the stat sheet on the paint, if you'd like to see that as well.
I would like to see what type of paint. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
While she's looking at that, you
Yeah, I
also
was like,
said you
y'all can
had
go on.
something from Ms. Rainwater. Could we see that as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Or is Ms. Rainwater here?
Opposition speakers present.
Just for the record. So I'm going to pass this down to my fellow commissioners, but it says, thank you for the reminder. I sent off an email to them this morning. You can go ahead with your project. As a reminder, no one can make you unpaint. And we very much appreciate you working with us to get things done. I'll send it down, what he said.
What was that you just read?
He referenced with Ms. Rainwater the agreement they came to.
they're the head of their.
Yeah. That was an email?
Text messages back and forth. I'll forward it down when Mr. Walker gets through.
Was anybody else involved in this meeting, or was it just Ms. Rainwater?
No, ma'am. It was Ms. Rainwater and myself.
I mean, again, I'm not picking on Ms. Rainwater, but what is up for debate? I mean, it goes back to the commission's authority to enforce a preference. Preferences are relevant when work is requested before it's done, and unfortunately, they're still relevant after work is done. But it's not up to debate that we have the authority to enforce a preference prior to the work being completed. And I think the question is, individually, does it affect your attitude about something when the work is done, with the added inconvenience or whatever other fallout happens? You can vote for it, and you're not allowing something that is forbidden by the guideline, right? And maybe that's what Ms. Rainwater is suggesting. However, I don't agree with the fact that nobody can make you unpaint it. The majority of this body could.
So on this, they also state that, were you able to talk to Brett at Landmarks? Did you talk to?
I mean, we have had conversations with the applicant and Ms. Rainwater. I don't know that we were involved in that conversation, but I mean, she would really need to be here.
I know, because she's
answer
saying she's given them a okay to go forward with this project.
Yeah, that's not okay.
No.
I mean, it literally says you can go ahead with your project. I think.
Well, what's your last name? I apologize, your last name.
Brian O'Leary.
O'Leary, yes, Mr. O'Leary and I, we spoke, and he agreed that he would not move forward because we advised him that that was not allowed by the stop work order. So I'm not sure when these conversations happened or
It's a date
what the
on it.
conversations were, but
Yeah, I can get you the date if you need it.
Okay.
I have a question for staff.
We've got a speaker
Page
too.
27 in the PowerPoint slide by any chance, which is from the National Register.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Strong. I can't.
Do you have
It's hard to hear.
the historic and architectural inventory image, which is on page 27 of the staff report? Do you happen to have a copy of that in the PowerPoint presentation?
Page 27?
Do you happen to have that in the PowerPoint presentation?
I don't have it in my presentation, but I
Okay.
can pull it out from our records.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there it is right there. Is she pulling something up for you? Okay.
I have a question. How easy would it be for you to change the color?
It would be as simple as just painting over it. Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, and still keep the integrity of the building? Because we're here now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
The
Okay,
roof
he
is
said he's
green.
willing to change the color to the roof.
Whatever she suggests, or
Well,
whatever they suggest.
If they're gonna change it to the color that's existing, because that's what the guidelines say.
Well, okay, are you done with, okay,
Madam
okay,
Chair.
let's stop. Okay. Okay, there any more questions for the applicant? Because we have a speaker too. Okay, thank you. Is it Combs? Come forward, please. Okay, state your name and home address.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana Combs, and I live at 1968 Harbert Avenue.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I live one house away from the subject property. Before my husband and I purchased our home in 2019, we had rented in Midtown for over 10 years, drawn to the neighborhood because of its historic character. We sought out a bungalow in Central Gardens because of the leafy character of the neighborhood, the historic appeal of the homes and the guidelines, and the friendly neighbors. Even though our home is only one house away from the subject apartment complex, we did not mind because the original brick, yellow siding, and green roof fit the charm of the neighborhood, and the complex was softened by several mature trees and shrubs. Since the current owner has purchased the building, they have, without notice or warning, completely altered its character and the character of our quiet street corner. They have removed most of the mature trees and shrubs, which both exposes trash cans to the street, where they are constantly on view, and removes shade from the sidewalks. And they have half painted the building, including the original brick and trim, a stark white, which does not fit the character of the neighborhood. Because the shrubs have been removed, dirt now stains the base of the building where it splashes onto the white paint when it rains. Worst, the owner appears to have painted historic stone decorations that adorn the roofline of the building. My kitchen window faces the back of the apartments, and I cringe every time I see the harsh white and painted over decorative stone features. The building has lost its character and threatens to bring down the property values of adjacent homes. Moreover, the building now glares white in the sun with no softening shades of paint or trees. The owner has not communicated with us about the drastic change in character he is inflicting on the neighborhood. When my husband and I were looking for a home, we deliberately did not look in a suburb where all white homes are common. We like the diversity and character of a craftsman neighborhood and the charm of original brick. Now, unfortunately, the apartment complex sticks out like a sore thumb, and the brick may have been damaged. I understand from reviewing the application that the property owner claims that painting the brick was necessary to address deteriorating brick, but the cracks in the building have recently been remortared, so another way was possible. It's not necessary to paint historic brick in an uncharacteristic monochromatic color in a way that causes glare and eyesore. My husband and I oppose the application and request that the owner be made to hire a facade restoration specialist to remove the paint and restore the brick as well as the canopy.
Thank you. Wait a second. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you. Did you want to readdress anything, sir?
What color is the roof? Is it stained green?
What'd you say?
The roof color. Is it stained
I was
green?
wondering about that too. What color is the roof color? Is it green? I can't tell from that photograph. Looks like it might. Is the roof color green still? Thought the same thing.
It has a flat roof, and on the front, the only part that has shingles are green shingles.
Okay, thank you.
And since you removed the canopy, what are your plans with the landscaping around the property? Since you removed all the mature landscaping?
Yes, ma'am. We're going to replant. We're going to sod all the way to the building, except for about 3 foot out, we're going to put in new bushes.
So why did you remove all the mature landscaping?
A lot of the trees were actually growing into the side of the building, and the tree on the front had completely destroyed the concrete. We had to replace the sidewalks as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'll now close the public hearing portion of this case, and the commissioners will further discuss it. May I get a motion in the positive?
Yes, this is Commissioner Warren. Before I submit my motion, I would like to remind the commissioners that we are not paint chemists or designers, and my motion is to approve case 20-022-013 for the purposes of discussion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I could have mentioned that after the motion. I don't know why I did it first, but we're not paint chemists, we're not designers, and I guess my question for our consideration is, if this came to us 6 months ago, would you approve this? That's all I have.
In my heart, I cannot, I don't buy the fact that the applicant did not know what was going on with the historical district.
But that's not.
You're right.
That may not be fair, and it's not relevant. Respectfully.
I respectfully take that, Peter. All right.
At this point, we're here, so we got to figure out how to make it work.
No, I'm going to say respectfully, we don't have to figure out how to make it work.
I would like to.
Hold on, let me finish.
Can I remind everyone to please speak into the microphone so we can captured.
Well, I don't want them to hear all of this because this is us.
No,
It's a public hearing.
It's a public hearing. You have to put it on.
Well, and I say that too, because we can belabor this all day. So we're going to disagree to something, or we just tell them we're not going to approve it, then what? You still have the white paint in her house.
It's not our problem to solve, and
Well, but then if that's the case, then we can just go with what they're asking us, approve what it is, and let them deal with it.
that's what I'm
So I would
suggesting.
like
We
to-
vote on this case.
I would like to add a
She
condition.
has her.
So I would like to add condition number 4 to this. Since the painting of the brick cannot be undone without causing further harm to the historic masonry and the design guidelines for Central Garden state, it is preferred that the original brick of the historic home.
I can't hear the conditions.
Okay, I'll start over. Condition number 4. Since the painting of the brick cannot be undone without causing further harm to the historic masonry and the design guidelines for Central Garden state, it is preferred that the original brick of the historic home be maintained and not painted. However, if painted, the preference is to maintain the same color as the original brick. The applicant will paint the exterior that is already painted the same color as the original brick or a color that closely matches it. I would like to add that as condition number 4 of recommendations as we vote for either approval or rejection of the application.
You need a second.
So
Could I have
to clarify that, you're asking to paint the entire building the same color now? Yes, or that close to the
The
pieces that have already been painted?
pieces that have been painted or what's been painted to paint it closer to the original brick color or a color that closely matches the original brick color. We've had the discussion up here, we've heard from the applicant, and we've heard from a resident in the neighborhood their thoughts or concerns about it, and we've seen in the staff report from people who've written in their concerns about the state of the building and structure as it is. And I just think this is in alignment with, or as close as we can get to following the design guidelines, because it is a preference in the design guidelines. This is a retroactive case, and it is a remedy for something that cannot be undone. And I think the neighborhood, I think the neighborhood, or for the letters that we read in the staff report and the concern that residents and others have expressed, considering this would be closer to what's there and wouldn't be such a stark contrast to the neighborhood, to the street block, and it wouldn't be so jarring. And I think this is something that could be a remedy.
Can you reread your condition?
Sure.
And if I may, Madam Chair, I think that really the only part that we don't need the full.
The applicant will paint the brick
I just want to
exterior.
clarify, if your intention is to not allow painting of the portion that hasn't been painted, that was just something I needed to clarify as well, so.
So I think on that, that's something, I think staff, maybe, as a consultation, should the whole thing be painted? That one thing? I'm not sure. What do you think would be?
Well, I think we would want some guidance.
That's why I'm asking for it to be reread, and I want to understand exactly, are we asking to cover up is your condition to cover up existing white paint with existing red paint? Are you going to paint the north facade and stop on the west facade so that the broad side of a brick is painted red, but the north side of the exact same brick is unpainted because he didn't start painting over there? I want to hear the wording of the condition exactly. Well, let her say. Because it needs to be exactly in the record for everybody.
Yeah.
If it's going to get a second and going to get a majority.
And what about the point?
So I would, I would prefer to defer to staff or, the others on the committee as well. How would you remedy that? Because part of the building, it was a stop work order, so all of it has not been painted, but it's painted so bright. If you paint it closer to the original brick or a dark color closely matching the brick, it wouldn't stand out so stark. Now, does that mean you take it all the way around the building? I don't know. I would leave that determination up to staff.
What are we going to do with the mortar? We're going to paint the mortar gray. I mean, these are questions that are really hard questions, and I don't think staff wants to grapple with them.
do have, I think just to synthesize the condition that was read, I mean, just very clearly, it's just to, that the portion of the structure that has already been painted will be repainted with a color that matches or closely matches the original brick color. And that's, that, I think that covers what you were stating as a condition, an added condition. So then the next question would be the portion that hasn't been painted and what you guys would like to add on to that. I think that Ms. Strong is suggesting that there's some type of condition that would allow staff to work with the applicant to determine where that might or may not start or stop, which we could do that, but I think that if there could be some more discussion and deliberation between the commissioners and try to get a little bit better understanding about that, or come to an agreement from the commissioners on what you would maybe like to see. I will mention also the back of the building is all siding and stucco, so you know, I'm not trying to suggest anything, but you know, there are places that this can be, you know, terminated and started.
I think it's an incredibly difficult. I respect your respect and appreciate the attempt at a solution, but the nuances of what will be required to make it look amenable from the public right-of-way are profound. I mean, you have stone trim, you have window sills, you have mortar, you have various facades. You know, you have literally, if the way this is worded, can result in a patch where if it's white, paint it red, and then stop. That's going to be incredibly apparent from the street. If you continue to the left and right edges of a principal facade, you're going to have portions of actual bricks where one side of a brick is painted and the other is not. I think that's going to look incredibly, what was the word you used? Janky. I think it's going to look bad. And I would encourage everyone to consider that before, first we need a second, and then we need a majority to approve that.
So I would like to say, obviously there are different architectural features on the building, so I don't see it as, I think it is important to have the distinction that we see when we look at some of the older photos up there. I think it's important not to cover that up, but they have painted it that white. And so it is not to do a monotone, all one color thing, but to try to rectify or take it back to what we see. So obviously you're not going to paint the trim the same color, but the color that they have is jarring and is standing out. And there are sections or portions of the structure that are unpainted. And, you know, I think taking it closer to what was there, it won't stand out so much. But that doesn't mean you're not going to have the contrast with the architectural features and the columns of the porches and trim work and all of that. So, and I think it was stated earlier that they should have different colors for the trim work and the other architectural features. So this was just trying to address the painted brick or get them to taking it close to what was there originally.
I'm just afraid that, I mean, and respect your opinion, but I'm just afraid that if you do that one little piece and just paint that one little piece and leave the other all brick, as much as I would like to do that, I don't know that it's going to look like one unit.
I think that the broader issue here is that we are trying to solve a problem that we did not create, and we need to be okay with. And I'm finally there. I love solving problems. I love helping people when they're in a tough spot. But I think it's time for this commission to ask themselves: would you vote for this in the affirmative 3 or 4 months ago, and not worry about the consequences of a no vote, and let staff and the environmental court and city council, if necessary, figure out this issue of painted brick on historic buildings? Because people are going, we have a reputation that you just do this. You want to paint your brick? your brick, just do it, because it's a preference, and once it's done, you'll get the yes vote. And the question, as I articulated earlier, is we absolutely have the authority to vote with our preferences, and how does our disposition change after somebody does something? What's the point? I think we don't need to worry about the consequences of problem solving. Ask yourself if you would have approved this 3 months ago. That's my personal take, strongly worded, and I'm frankly done.
So just to understand, if you vote yes, it means you're just going to paint everything the light gray or white color. But if you do, for example, the condition, the extra condition, if they painted it all that color that's closer to the brick, what about instead of stopping where they painted it, but just painted all that color that's closer to the brick?
If it was all actually painted brick, it would actually be upholding what is in there.
What's before us right now is a fourth condition that needs a second to go to a vote.
So change it to where instead of just stopping where they stop, just have it where it's that color that's closer to the original brick.
I think the fourth condition risks creating a situation that looks worse than the actual proposal.
Can I get a clarification on what that revision to the condition was, Ms. Strong? Was it to require painting the building close to match the original color, but painting the entire building?
Painting the what's painted closer to the original color of the brick, or color that closely matches the original color of the brick. That was the original condition. And then it was questioned, well, do you mean only the portion where they painted, or you take it all the way around? And that's where I was hoping the committee or commission could discuss that and get feedback on what they think is best. But I just think it would, instead of that,
but we don't have to approve it,
lighter shade that the applicant wants, I think going closer to what was originally there, if it has to be painted, wouldn't stand out so much.
Thing is,
So if we say.
Madam Chair, can I remind everyone that we need to have...
Close this one out.
Well, no, that we need to have the deliberation among the commissioners.
With everything on.
Yes.
Right. Okay. The one thing, and I just said it too, is that I am afraid that if you stopped it, like we said at one point, that it's gonna be it's an issue now. Okay, so if you stop it, go and have them paint it close to the brick in that one area, it's just kind of gonna look like a sloppy job, and half of it's done and half of it's the naked brick. If you painted the whole brick, and I know what you're saying too, if you painted the whole brick at this point, a brick color, it actually upholds their guidelines that say they prefer you to paint it. I don't have it in front of me, but as close to the brick as possible.
I think you need to be careful with it. Doesn't uphold the guideline. What is the wording again?
It's a preference.
No, it's a preference not to paint it. And if it is...
It's a preference not to paint it, but half of it's painted already.
It is preferred that the original brick of the historic home be maintained and not painted. However, if painted, that means, however, if approved through proper channels to be painted.
All right, but that's gone. Those are gone.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you leave it to whatever happens, if we deny it,
I think,
where does it go if we deny it?
It's not relevant. I think that we owe this district, we owe, it's not, we are not the people that have to solve these problems.
But
let's let environmental court, let's let the contractors, it's a yes or no.
I'll ask staff. I do understand. But does it go do they reapply here? Do they just stop what they're doing? I mean, what happens?
Let's find out.
Well, if it were rejected, then we would have to start the process of dealing with it through environmental court and those type of issues, and it would, could easily end up back in your hands in the same situation that we're in right now is one possibility. And so one of the things I'll just mention, we do stress to applicants and citizens that live in historic districts, guidelines are there as guidelines, and the commission is here to interpret, deliberate, hear testimony, and come to a conclusion and an approval or a denial. So all those things are on the table, but guidelines are that. They are guidelines. And so obviously, if something says you shall not do something, I mean, I'll just be honest, the commission could still, in certain instances, agree that that is still appropriate. So there is a lot of flexibility that you have with guidelines. So it's not...
Right. Extenuating circumstances exist. The question is, if I choose to ignore it or was unaware of it, is that an extenuating circumstance? And my take on this is that we've become, I won't say the laughing stock, but people just understand that if you want to do it, you paint it and you get away with it because it's not forbidden. And sometimes when it is forbidden in another district, when it says shall not, it still gets approved. And it's not, to me, it's not okay, and it's not our job to solve the problem. And I think it's time to, let this sort itself out. I think it's completely valid to ask. That building is gorgeous. I mean, that building is beautiful, and this shouldn't have happened. And I feel bad if somebody didn't know, but our job is to protect these beautiful buildings. And, we need to probably convene a committee separately with staff and some experts, some painters and commissioners, and come up with ideas. Administratively, what if we required a sign be posted in the yard for 30 days before you painted a building in Central Gardens? It says, I plan to paint this building, right? I mean, there's ways to sort this out. And it doesn't need to get sorted out by being like, gosh, this is a tough spot. I feel sorry for them, respectfully,
Okay, so
is the fourth motion to paint the entire building now the brick color?
Yes, paint the entire structure a paint color that closely matches the brick, or is the original?
Or the masonry.
The masonry, thank you, masonry.
And to be clear, the applicant would not be obliged to do that. They would have that option, or they could remove the paint.
Yeah, remove the paint.
But you
No,
can't
he said he would not paint it a different color. It doesn't matter. I'm just...
Hold on. No sandblasting.
We are not contractors, paint chemists, or designers that need to point at it and say, do this, do this, do this. What I suggest we do is say, would we have approved this 3 months ago?
Okay, so you want to restate your motion, or do we know?
Sure, I'll restate it.
Because this is just this part, and we have to vote.
So condition number 4, the applicant will paint the masonry. We'll paint all the masonry the same color as the original brick color, or a color that closely matches it.
Okay, got it.
Is there a second on that?
I second.
We call for a vote.
Okay, a vote to add this condition, or is this a vote of approval with this condition?
I think it's a vote for approval with 4 conditions, the 4th one being new.
Yes. Okay. Just want to make sure everybody's clear on what we're voting for. All right. Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. Love?
Yes, with the 4th condition.
Ms. Strong?
Yes, with the 4th condition.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
No.
Chair Tucker?
No.
Got 4 yes, 2 no. Motion carries.
Okay. that's all of the agenda items. Is there any new business?
No, ma'am, we don't have any.
Okay, the next meeting is Thursday, April 28th, 2022.